Okay, we're at the 5 o'clock hour. Are we now ready for Mr. College Football?
Yes, we are. Mr. College Football is coming up.
He is one of my all-time favorite people. One of the things he did years ago was write an autobiography about the late, great University of Georgia play-by-play voice Larry Munson. And during SEC Media Days, Tony Barnhart and I had a blast going through old Munson stories. But it's actually Billy that caught up with him, and here is that interview.
Start so far this week. What's the biggest thing that you look at and kind of surprises you, whether it was a quote or from a coach or a player? What surprised you most so far here in Atlanta?
Well, it was interesting to hear Kirby Smart. A lot of times when coaches say, well, this player is not getting the respect they deserve, and they sort of talk around it and all that. And he said, yeah. He said Stetson Bennett is a guy. He's the least known great player in my program, and I think that to me that was significant. It was good to see the commissioner. Somebody asked me before it started what the commissioner was going to say in his opening remarks, and I said he's probably going to stand up there and say conference expansion. No, we're good. We're good. Thanks. Appreciate it. We're in good shape. And the other thing I thought he was going to say, he says, you know what? Look, all things considered, it's pretty good to be us. We're happy to be us. And so that's when he talked about the strength and who they are. So I thought that was a good way to sort of kick things off. There's been no real surprises from the coaches. I always enjoy Mike Leach and his interlude and what he talks about, things of that nature. So, but no surprises, and I think the commissioner kind of wanted it that way this week.
Yeah, there's less drama, probably better for the commissioner,
That's
right?
Don't need any more drama. We got enough drama in college football without adding any more to it.
Exactly. I want to talk NIL now. It feels like every coach has been asked about it. He's been asked about NIL. He's been asked about transfer portal. Mm-hmm. Which response did you feel like might have surprised some people, or was it just kind of par for the course this week?
Well, I think Kirby Smart said it, Commissioner Sankey said it, and they all said, "Listen, we are in favor of NIL. We're in favor of the guys making money in the open marketplace. What we're looking for, as administrators and coaches, is just tell us what the rules are. We'll operate within the rules, but you got to have some rules." Nick Saban, I was with a smaller group that talked to Nick Saban yesterday. He said, there's no, in the history of sports, in the history of anything competitive, you always have to have a set of rules. And there are no rules. There are no rules right now, and that's why people call it the Wild Wild West, because that's exactly what it is. So the challenge is going to be they're not against NIL. They want the players to be able to make money. But what they do need to know is a set of enforceable is the operative word there that the commissioner used yesterday. You've got to have a set of enforceable rules so that everybody's playing off the same page instead of 3 or 4 or 5 different states who have their own laws. The other thing that was said, Nick Saban said it yesterday, the model we have now, which is crazy, is not sustainable. You're going to have schools that have promised this, they've promised X, and they can't deliver. And that's when it's really going to get ugly.
Tony, I want to go through the SEC East here real quick. Georgia, of course, is here in Atlanta today. Tennessee is a really trendy pick to finish right behind Georgia, and even a trendy pick to finish third in the SEC as a whole. So for Tennessee in the SEC East and in that pecking order, what's the outlook for the Vols this year?
I like Tennessee. Right now I've got them finishing second in the SEC East. I wish they play. Hopefully they're going to play a little bit better defense than they did. But, the great thing that Josh Heupel did in his first year is that he established a very clear playing identity of what Tennessee wanted to be. They're going to spread you out. They're going to put their playmakers on your defensive backs and try to win these one-on-one matchups, and they're going to stretch you. They're going to stretch you horizontally, but they're also going to stretch you vertically. And so when Hendon Hooker, 31 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. That's unheard of. Usually in many passes he throws, there'd be wide receivers that tip the ball and it lands somewhere else. It bounces off somebody's head. But 31 touchdowns and 3 interceptions was good. So that's why I have Tennessee finishing second.
In the West, is it Alabama's to lose? Or you like anybody? You like A&M to kind of nip at their heels? You like anybody else there?
Alabama's going to win every game they play. Okay, I can't make it any more plainer than that. Alabama is in a really interesting mindset right now. They won the Southeastern Conference Championship. They won 13 games. 7th time Saban has done that, by the way, 13 or more games. They got to the national championship game. 99% of the football programs in America will be throwing a parade right after the games. Alabama, well, we got to rebuild and figure out what we're going to do next. We'll somehow overcome that season. And so I just think they're in a great frame. I know, by the way, you got arguably the best offensive player in college football in Bryce Young, who only won the Heisman Trophy, and you got a guy in Will Anderson who will be, no, I'm not going to say probably. He will be the first defensive player to come off the board in the NFL draft. That's how good he is.
I thought you were going to say he's going to win the Heisman. I thought you were going to say first defensive player in a while.
By George, he should get to New York, and it would be great. It would be great for the Heisman, and it would be great for college football if you want it.
Might as well give it to him. Let's get into the national perspective of college football right now. Of course, we're all talking about the SEC, but with conference realignment, how is the Big 12 affected? How is the Pac-12 affected? We just heard about they don't want to deal with each other. They're not going to merge. So do you think that's smarter on their part, or do you think do you think there's something else out there for those schools?
I think it's dumb on the Pac-12's part, because I tell you what's going to happen. Unless I miss my guess, the Big 12 is going to sit down and go say, hey, we tried to reason with them. We tried to come up with something that would work and save us both. Now we're going on offense. As the new commissioner said last week, we are open for business. And that tells me they are going to think seriously about going to the Pac-12. I mean, think about this. You got Oregon, you got Washington sitting there as your major market programs now. What about taking those two, taking Colorado, who's been in the Big 12, and that's a fit, and Utah, and that's a fit. And that gives you a 16-team conference just like the SEC and the Big 10. I think they'll make that move, and honestly, the Pac-12 is going to really be hurting. I just don't see the Big 12 standing pat. I could be wrong. They understand this is not about teams. Everybody's getting, well, you need to get that team. No. This is math. How much money, if I bring you 4 teams in, how much money are you going to generate? Are you going to generate enough money so that everybody pays for themselves? Because we're not going to take less money this year than we did last year just because we wanted to add some teams. So you have to do the math. And to me, it just makes sense for the Big 12 to go aggressive and get 4 more teams to get up to 16.
Tony, Notre Dame just asked for $75 million from NBC, so they're in a really interesting spot right now. Irish fans everywhere are sitting here saying, what's going to happen? Where are we going to go? So what's going on with the Irish?
It's called leverage, okay? And Jack Swarbrick, the athletic director at Notre Dame, has got it. They've been able to make it work financially with – I think the most they're getting from NBC was like $25 million now. And so what they're doing is they're leaning on NBC. They're saying, look, we have options. We can stay as an independent, but it's going to cost – we got to have $75 million. Because the teams in the Big Ten are going to get $100 million. Maybe the teams in the SEC get $100 million. It's going to take 75 for us to
ready to connect. Click connect to show now. NBC. You are connected as the host.
I think.
Welcome, host. You are now in the host room and can manage your callers from the call-in studio web interface.
One of my friends in the business wrote that if Notre Dame does join the Big Ten, they will lose their identity, and they will. Penn State lost their identity. They were the great Eastern Independent, but sometimes you get to a point in time where if you're Notre Dame, you're saying these circumstances may never arise again. We may never be in this, and I'm telling you, if the Big Ten lays $100 million on the table, I think they go. I don't think they're going to get that bid. I think they'll end up staying as an independent. As
an independent, Tony, for Notre Dame, does that put them at a disadvantage? I know we talk about pride for a fan base and players and coaches. A lot of them do probably want to stay independent, but what does that mean for them in the future? Does it put them at a disadvantage if they're independent?
It absolutely could. It absolutely could. The question is what happens with they have an arrangement with the ACC, where the ACC hosts all of their basketball and other revenue sports there. And here's the key component. Notre Dame is obligated to play 5 games a year against the ACC. That's almost half of their schedule. That's a big deal. If you're the ACC and you're selling season tickets and Notre Dame's coming to your place, that's a big deal. So I'm anxious to see how that much of it is going to pan out. I think the easiest thing for Notre Dame would be to stay as an independent, and they can say, look, here's the other thing if you're Notre Dame. I got to have a 12-team playoff. Okay, I can't stick with 4. Notre Dame's gotten in a couple of times at 4, but the biggest things that matter to Notre Dame, I was told, was obviously a home for their other sports, money, and access to the college football playoff. So I think they feel strongly they've got to get a 12-team playoff.
Tony, real quick here, the Dodd Trophy presented by PNC. You've got this, been talking about it all week here at SEC Media Days. Tell us about the Dodd Trophy.
Well, the Dodd Trophy is different than other college Coach of the Year awards. Those awards are great. They honor excellence, a coach that has had a good season or has done a great job with a particular team. The Dodd Trophy is different. The Dodd Trophy takes into account scholarship, leadership, integrity. What do the players do academically? What do they do in public service? What does the head coach do when it comes to public service? It's all those things. It is different in that the recipient, we go to the campus and have a banquet and award the coach right there on his campus in front of his peers and the faculty and all that kind of stuff. So I was asked to put my name or lend my name to the board of directors about 12 years ago, and it's been a wonderful relationship. And I was asked to come here and sort of promote the Dodd Trophy, and I'm more than happy to do that.
That's great stuff, Tony. Thanks for taking the time. I'll tell George you said hi.
Please do. Take care.
I will. Thank you.
See you.